If you could bring one animal back from extinction, what would it be?
Oh, that is a good question. I think it would be different answers for different reasons. I would love to see the saber-tooth comitherium. I think that it's just such an awesome animal. That would be one of my answers. I'd also love to see a living thylacine. That would be great. Tasmanian tigers, that would be amazing. I could go on forever. Dodos, I'd love to see one of those. Yeah, I've got a whole kind of shopping list of what I'd like to see back.
What about from a pragmatic or practical viewpoint? What would be the best or most effective one, maybe in the UK, for example, or Western Europe, to reintroduce or bring back from extinction?
It's tricky. I don't know if I have a kind of clear answer for what would be the best de-extinction for Western Europe. It's probably it's like an easier question in somewhere like Australia, where we have the thylacine, the recent extinction, and such a keystone species, the kind of largest marsupial predator of recent times. That would be a no-brainer. It's the best one to bring back. For the UK or Western Europe, it may be something like the great auk. So the great auk, kind of flightless seabird, last seen 1840s off Iceland, looked like a giant razorbill.
Yeah.
They went extinct purely through human persecution. I think they would not have any net negatives, so they don't interfere with humans. They are quite nice to look at. They were exterminated by humans, so we have a moral obligation to think about their de-extinction. But the problem with anything sort of big or large is we don't really know what we like to live with them anymore. So if we wanted to de-extinct a mammoth or a woolly rhino, these are large, dangerous, unpredictable, often grumpy animals. Even sort of smaller things like saber-tooths or cave lions or cave bears. Yeah. Unintended consequences are always at the back of my mind.
Did you say the great auk was flightless
Yeah.
seabird? So how did
So
they move about?
so they were good swimmers. They were the original penguin. So they're the penguin of the
Uh,
northern hemisphere, and that's what they were called. It's only later explorers discovered what we know as penguins in the southern hemisphere that they gave them the same name. They're mostly black and white flightless swimming birds. What's the difference? But yeah, great auks, flightless, nested on islands. So, I mean, they were found in the UK, they were found in St Kilda, found in the Orkney Islands, and probably, even as far south as places like Cornwall and Devon.
can you tell me a
Yeah.
bit more about the thylacine, the marsupial predator in Australia?
Yeah. So thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian mole. So it's a large, very dog-like animal with stripes on its hindquarters. It went extinct in 1936, although people today still claim to see them. They were last found in Tasmania, the island state up the south of mainland Australia. But before dingoes were introduced into Australia about 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, they were found all over the continent of Australia. And again, it's a story of deliberate persecution by humans. So the Tasmanian government at the time were worried that these thylacines were eating sheep. And so they put a bounty on their heads, and people were paid to hunt cats and kill them. They probably lingered until the 1950s at least. A couple of papers came out in the last few years looking at last sightings and statistical analysis of sightings to see when the last few remaining individuals would have been around. And so, yeah, they didn't eat that many sheep. That was a kind of scurrilous lie put around by the government. People occasionally kept them as pets in Tasmania. People that didn't die that long ago had them as pets when they were young.
Wow.
And again, no danger to humans, minimal danger to livestock, but an important part of the marsupial ecosystem. These were the animals that ate kangaroos. Today, the largest marsupial carnivore is the Tasmanian devil, which again, like our badger, is a scavenger.
Yeah.
All the kind of large marsupial carnivores are gone. Thylacine was the last one to hang on.
And how big were they? When you say marsupial, is that relating to Oceania, Australia area?
Yeah, so marsupials, there are a few found in the Americas, like possums, but mostly they're an Australasian phenomenon. Thylacine was a marsupial, so it had a pouch. It gave birth to very small young that lived in the pouch for a long period of time. And yeah, originally found, the thylacine was found from New Guinea, which is, on the other side of Wallace's Line, which is where marsupials are kind of confined to. And yeah, very successful predator until people turned up.
And how come they weren't a threat to humans?
There are reports of people being bitten by them, but they're sort of dog size. I think you'd be able to fight one off fairly easily. One of the last guys to photograph, I found a guy called David Lee, who took pictures of the last one in the zoo in Hobart. After he finished taking his pictures, it bit him on the backside. So they were capable of fighting, but not capable of killing, unless you were very unlucky. There's no records that I know of Thylacines killing anyone.
Yeah, and speaking of the Oceania area, what are the reasons to why there's so many quote unquote weird animals? Is it because of geographic isolation? Is it because of climate?
Yeah, weird is a very subjective term. Weird to us as maybe Western Europeans, but if you were to ask somebody from the Torres Islands to look at a bison or a sheep, they'd probably say those things are equally weird.
True.
I think this is something that the fauna of Oceania has suffered from because Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, all these places have suffered under empire and colonial attitudes. The idea that the platypus is weird, but a sheep isn't, that's really not been to their favor. I think they're incredible. But you look at the marsupials, you look at a wombat, you look at a koala, you look at a kangaroo. These are incredible creatures. Calling them weird is a disservice. They're not weird, they're cool.
Speaking of the duckbill platypus, are there any kind of descendants of that are now extinct, like maybe a giant platypus or something like that?
There are fossil platypus known, including ones that are bigger than the modern day. I can't remember what the name of them is. I think I do remember that. So platypus that are around today, they don't have teeth. So in their bill, they're toothless. They don't need them. But some of the earlier fossils, ancestors do have teeth, which is pretty interesting. So they're part of they're not marsupials. They're part of the monotreme group with the echidnas. So they're, even cooler. I'm not going to say weird. They're even cooler than marsupials in that they don't give birth to young. They lay eggs and kind of look after those, feed them a sort of milk that they produce as well.
What other animals are closely related to the platypus that are alive today?
So a few different species of echidna, which is also known as spiny anteater.
Oh yeah.
It looks a bit like a kind of hedgehog, porcupine kind of creature. And again, very inoffensive, very placid and insectivore. There's a couple of species found in Australia and a couple of species found in Papua New Guinea as well.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's not a lot of monotremes left, so that makes them even more special.
Are they threatened? Are they very endangered, platypus?
Certainly, some of the species of echidna are. And I think the platypus is classed as endangered as well by the ACN. And there are kind of laws in Australia around disturbing them and need protection.